The alley was dark, the storm heavy, and thunder rolled across the city like a warning. A stray cat, battered and scarred, crawled near the trash cans, its trembling body soaked in rain. Hunger gnawed at its fragile form. Its ribs pressed against its skin as it dragged itself through puddles, shivering with each breath. A flash of lightning revealed fear in its wide eyes, as if the world itself hunted it. Cars rushed by without stopping, their lights casting fleeting shadows across the alley walls. James staggered past, muttering, "Filthy creatures don't belong here," and kicked a can near the cat. The noise echoed like a gunshot, sending the cat scrambling against the wall. In that moment, silence hung thick, broken only by the cat's shallow panting. Its claws scraped wet concrete as it curled tighter into itself. Hope seemed far away, yet in its eyes flickered a tiny flame of survival, refusing to die even as cruelty rained harder upon it. The rain refused to stop, and the alley grew colder by the minute. The stray cat curled tighter, body shaking, eyes fixed on the shadows. Hunger twisted inside it, sharp and merciless. The storm drowned its faint mewls, lost in the roar of thunder. Its mind wandered to faint warmth once felt, but memory blurred under the weight of despair. James' footsteps faded, leaving silence heavy in the night. The cat pressed its cheek to the cold pavement, breath shallow and broken. A distant siren wailed, a haunting song for the forgotten. In its frail chest, hope flickered faintly, a stubborn refusal to surrender despite cruelty closing in. The night dragged slowly, each minute heavier than the last. The stray cat struggled to lift its head, ears twitching at distant sounds. A hollow hunger clawed its belly. It pawed at scraps, finding nothing but moldy paper and damp plastic. Its body sagged, too weak to search farther. The storm mocked with endless noise, drowning out faint dreams of comfort. The scar along its shoulder throbbed, reminder of past cruelty. Lightning flashed again, painting the cat's shadow against the wall, fragile and small. Alone, drenched and broken, the alley was its prison, and despair its only companion. Morning neared, but the storm showed no mercy. The stray cat staggered toward a narrow doorway, its legs trembling with each step. A neon sign buzzed faintly above, sputtering in the rain. The cat collapsed briefly, then dragged itself onward, claws scratching the soaked ground. Its ears perked at faint footsteps in the distance, only to recoil at the thought of another cruel encounter. A wet gust swept through the alley, chilling deeper into its bones. Its body cried for warmth, but none came. The night stretched mercilessly, and the cat clung to survival with fragile strength. The alley grew quieter as dawn teased faint light on the horizon. The stray cat lay collapsed, chest rising in shallow gasps. Its eyes fluttered, heavy with exhaustion, as if ready to surrender. Rain eased but left bitter cold. Its thin frame trembled, breath clouding faintly in morning chill. A broken mule escaped its throat, fading almost instantly. It closed its eyes, waiting for the darkness to claim it, yet a stubborn beat within refused to stop. The silence deepened, but that fragile heartbeat echoed louder than the storm had, whispering survival against all odds. The storm had passed, but the alley was still wet with sorrow. The stray cat lay weak, its eyes half open, glowing faintly in the first light of dawn. Hunger gnawed deeper, but exhaustion pinned it down. Each shallow breath carried both pain and persistence. The city beyond the alley buzzed faintly, cars rushing and people walking, but none noticed the fragile life fighting for another day. The cat's eyes searched the world around, almost pleading for a reason to keep moving. Its chest rose and fell in rhythm with the dripping of rainwater from pipes above. There was no warmth, no comfort, only the sound of a city that did not care. Yet in its gaze, even through suffering, there was something unforgettable, a silent cry for connection that could not be ignored. Memories flickered in the cat's weary mind like fading sparks. Once, long ago, there had been warmth, gentle hands, and the faint smell of a safe home. A woman's laughter had echoed softly, though the sound was now just a whisper of something lost. The cat's body shifted faintly, as if chasing that memory, but its strength was too little to rise. A soft mew escaped, vanishing instantly into the noise of the morning city. The dream of belonging was nearly gone, yet somewhere inside the memory lingered, refusing to vanish completely. Its broken heart held a fragment of light from a world it once knew, even if it could not return to it. The hunger returned, sharp and merciless, forcing the cat to move again. Its paws dragged across the pavement as it searched near the dumpsters. The stench was overwhelming, yet it pushed forward, nose twitching desperately for scraps. A moldy wrapper stuck to its whiskers as it pawed through soggy cardboard. But no food came. Its belly growled, a hollow sound in the emptiness of the alley. Rain dripped rhythmically from above, splashing into filthy puddles beside it. The cat's head dropped low, its body quivering from effort. Each attempt to find something to ease its hunger ended in failure, leaving despair to deepen with every passing moment. From the other end of the alley, a small sound stirred. The stray cat's ears twitched, body stiffening, as it turned slowly toward the noise. Emerging from the shadows was a smaller animal, a tiny kitten with tangled fur and trembling paws. The kitten's eyes darted nervously, scanning for danger. The two locked eyes for a brief moment. The cat's heart stirred, recognizing the same fear, the same loneliness it carried. The kitten let out a faint squeak, uncertain whether to trust or flee. The silence stretched between them, heavy with shared desperation. For the first time, the cat saw itself reflected in another soul, fragile and frightened. The kitten hesitated, stepping closer before freezing again, its body tense and ready to bolt. The stray cat remained still, eyes fixed on the fragile creature. Something inside it softened, a forgotten instinct to protect stirring within. Hunger, pain, and fear momentarily gave way to an unspoken bond. The kitten mewed again, softer this time, and shuffled forward another step. The alley, once filled with only despair, now carried a faint echo of hope. The cat shifted faintly, as if to make room, its heart torn between its own suffering and the need to shield this small life before it. In that instant, survival was no longer just its own. The morning light revealed a harsher truth as James returned, stomping through the alley with anger on his face. His eyes narrowed when he saw the stray cat and the kitten together, trembling in the corner. "So you found yourself a friend," James muttered coldly, kicking at the ground to scare them. The cat arched its back, fur bristling, but fear outweighed strength. The kitten pressed tighter against the older cat, tiny body shaking in terror. James' laugh echoed, cruel and sharp, as he raised his hand with a bottle. The alley became smaller, suffocating under his shadow. The cat hissed weakly, but James' towering figure loomed over them both, a storm of cruelty ready to strike. The cat lunged forward, its weak body straining to shield the kitten. Its hiss filled the alley, thin but defiant. James stepped closer, boots slamming against the puddle, splashing dirty water toward them. "Pathetic," he growled, gripping the bottle tighter. The kitten whimpered, pressing itself under the cat's chest. Though frail, the older cat's stance carried determination that defied its weakness. It would not let James harm the fragile life beside it. The clash between cruelty and fragile courage filled the alley like a battle cry. Yet, the cat's trembling legs warned how close it was to collapse under the weight of fear and exhaustion. Suddenly, a sound echoed from the end of the alley, a cage door clanging open. A shelter worker appeared, carrying a steel trap meant for strays. The worker's face was indifferent, hardened by routine. He muttered, "Another useless pair to lock away." The cat's heart raced, fear splitting between James and this new threat. The kitten whimpered, sensing the danger. The worker set the trap down with a metallic clang, its door gaping wide like a prison. James smirked and stepped back, as if satisfied to let the cage finish his work. The cat pressed itself against the wall, torn between running, fighting, or surrendering to hopelessness. The storm above gave way to thunder, shaking the alley with its roar. The cat's golden eyes darted between the cage and James' cold stare. The kitten squeaked, body trembling with every drip of rain. The worker muttered, "Best make it quick," as he nudged the cage door wider. James crossed his arms, watching with twisted amusement. The cat's claws scraped against the pavement, torn between despair and defiance. Every instinct screamed for escape, yet its body could hardly move. The alley smelled of rust, garbage, and looming doom. Survival seemed impossible, yet something inside the cat refused to yield completely. Rain eased slightly, but the tension only grew heavier. The worker stepped back, waiting for the cat to approach the bait inside the cage. James smirked, whispering, "Go on, little coward." The kitten whimpered, trying to hide under the cat's body. The older cat lowered its head, eyes blazing with the last fragments of strength. It hissed sharply, refusing to step forward. Its frail body trembled, but its spirit flared brighter than the trap's shadow. In that moment, the alley was filled with defiance, not surrender. The cat's choice was clear. It would rather face cruelty head-on than lose its freedom in silence. The alley's cruel silence broke when Emily appeared at the far end. Her footsteps splashed softly against the wet pavement, carrying urgency and warmth. She stopped, eyes widening at the sight of the stray cat, shielding the kitten against the wall. James sneered, muttering, "Not your business, lady." Emily's chest tightened, her heart aching at the sight of their frail bodies trembling in fear. She knelt slowly, voice gentle. "It's all right, sweetheart. I won't hurt you." The cat's ears twitched, eyes filled with suspicion, yet something in her tone pierced through the haze of terror. For the first time, kindness entered the alley, and it felt like hope breaking through storm clouds. Emily reached into her bag, pulling out a small packet of food. The soft rustle drew the cat's attention, golden eyes narrowing with cautious hunger. James scoffed, "You think scraps will fix that mess?" Emily ignored him, gently setting the food on the ground, her hand retreating to show she meant no harm. The kitten sniffed the air, its tiny body inching forward, only to be pulled back by the cat's protective paw. Emily whispered again, "Take your time. I'm not here to trap you." Her words carried patience, every syllable a promise. The alley seemed to breathe differently, no longer suffocating but trembling with fragile possibility. Emily leaned closer, her eyes tracing the scars along the cat's shoulder, each mark a story of pain it had endured. Her throat tightened as she whispered, "Someone hurt you badly, didn't they?" James rolled his eyes, muttering, "Weak creatures get what they deserve." Emily turned her head sharply, glare burning through his cold words. The cat's trembling lessened, sensing the shift, as if recognizing her anger was not toward it, but toward the cruelty that had broken it. She reached out her hand slowly, letting it hover in the air without force. For the first time, the cat did not retreat immediately, but its eyes locked onto hers, measuring trust against fear. The rain softened into a drizzle, drops glistening on Emily's outstretched fingers. The cat sniffed the air, its nose twitching closer to her hand. The kitten peeked upward, wide eyes watching as if waiting for permission. James muttered curses under his breath, but Emily stayed calm, her voice like a steady flame in the cold. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," she whispered. The cat hesitated, its claws scraping faintly against the ground, before lowering its head. Its nose touched her fingertips, a spark of fragile trust breaking through the wall of fear. Emily's heart surged, knowing this moment changed everything. From the shadows, another sound stirred, a soft mewl not from the kitten, but from deeper in the alley. A second small shape limped forward, another abandoned kitten with tangled fur, eyes glistening with the same desperate plea. Emily gasped softly, heart breaking at the sight. "There's more of you," she whispered, voice heavy with sorrow and resolve. The older cat looked toward the new arrival, body tensing as it recognized another fragile life needing protection. Emily's hands trembled, realizing this was not a rescue of one, but the beginning of something greater. The alley, once only a place of despair, now held fragile hope multiplied. James stepped forward, fury flashing in his eyes, as Emily shielded the cats. "They're mine," he snarled, voice echoing against the walls. Emily stood firm, trembling but resolute, saying, "No, they're not. They deserve better than you. The older cat hissed, body arching with protective fire. The kittens pressed close, their tiny bodies trembling under its chest. James raised his hand as if to strike, his shadow looming. Emily's heart pounded, but her gaze never wavered. In that tense moment, cruelty and compassion collided, the alley becoming a stage for a battle between fear and love. James lunged, but Emily spread her arms wide, blocking his path. "You'll have to go through me first," she said, her voice breaking yet unyielding. James growled, his face twisted in rage, but the cat sprang forward, claws flashing in the dim light. It hissed, leaping toward James' boot, slashing desperately. He stumbled back, startled by the sudden defiance. The kittens squealed but stayed close under Emily's legs. The alley rang with the clash of raw courage against cruelty. For the first time, James faltered, shaken by the sight of strength rising from those he had called weak. The shelter worker hesitated, eyes flickering with conflict, as he watched Emily stand her ground. "Step aside," he muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. Emily turned toward him, her eyes fierce. "You know they don't belong in a cage. You've seen enough cruelty to know better." His jaw tightened, rain dripping from his hood as he glanced at the trembling cats. For a moment, silence stretched, broken only by the soft cries of the kittens. His hand lowered from the trap's latch, uncertainty cracking the armor of indifference. The alley now carried not just defiance but the weight of choice. James roared in frustration, grabbing Emily's arm to shove her aside. She cried out, struggling against his grip, but the cat struck again, claws tearing into his leg. "Damn animal," he shouted, stumbling backward, pain twisting his face. Emily yanked her arm free, her breath sharp with fear but her will unbroken. The kittens mewed in panic, their cries piercing the damp air. James staggered, fury shaking his body, but the cat's golden eyes blazed, daring him to try again. For every scar it bore, the moment demanded courage, and it rose to meet it with unyielding spirit. James staggered, clutching his bleeding leg, his fury dimming into humiliation. "They're not worth it," he spat, retreating with a glare. Emily held her ground, chest heaving, as relief trembled through her. The cat limped slightly, yet its head remained high, standing tall beside her. The kittens pressed close, their cries fading into softer whimpers. The shelter worker stepped back, his face shadowed with guilt but silent acceptance. The storm had ended, replaced by dawn's first light casting gold across the alley. For the first time, the cats were not alone, and the darkness no longer owned them. Emily carried the cats into her small apartment, the warmth of the room washing over their trembling bodies. She whispered, "You're safe now," her voice cracking with relief. The stray cat limped to a blanket she laid on the floor, curling protectively around the kittens. The little ones purred faintly, their tiny chests rising against the softness. The scent of food drifted from the kitchen, but the cat's tired eyes stayed locked on Emily. She knelt near, her hand hovering with care before brushing gently along its fur. The storm outside was gone, replaced by peace within these walls. Hope had found its way inside. The cat hesitated as Emily set down a small bowl of food. Hunger gnawed inside it, but caution held stronger. Emily smiled softly, whispering, "It's okay, this is yours." The kittens squeaked and shuffled toward the bowl, their tiny paws tapping against the wooden floor. The older cat finally leaned forward, taking the first careful bite. Its eyes flicked to Emily, suspicion slowly softening into trust. She exhaled, tears welling, realizing that this simple act meant more than words. The room grew still, filled only with the sound of quiet eating and the soft rhythm of purring. As evening settled, Emily sat on the couch, watching the cats rest. The kittens played faintly, batting at each other with tiny paws, while the older cat lay nearby, eyes heavy but peaceful. Emily whispered, "You've been through so much, but you're not alone anymore." She leaned back, exhaustion mixing with relief, her gaze following the fragile family now safe in her care. The scars that once marked tragedy now became symbols of survival. The quiet hum of her apartment wrapped them in calm, the chaos of the world outside fading into nothing. For the first time, she felt her own heart healing. The cat stirred in its sleep, twitching as memories of the alley haunted its dreams. Emily noticed, kneeling down and placing her hand gently on its fur. "You're safe," she whispered, as if her voice could guard against the past. The cat calmed under her touch, breathing steadier. The kittens curled beside their protector, tiny bodies pressed against the warmth of his scarred frame. Emily felt tears roll silently, not just for the animals but for herself, realizing she too had carried her own silent battles. Together they had found refuge in each other, a sanctuary built from brokenness. As night deepened, Emily dimmed the lights and settled onto the couch, the sound of soft purring filling the apartment. The kittens lay entwined, tiny paws tucked against each other, while the older cat kept his head raised, eyes watching Emily with quiet devotion. She whispered, "You saved me as much as I saved you." Silence wrapped around her words, heavy with meaning. The scars would never fully vanish, but healing had begun, woven through trust, love, and survival. In that room, fragile lives had found purpose, and so had she. Together, they had turned pain into something unbreakable. Morning sunlight streamed softly into the apartment, painting the walls with warmth. Emily awoke to the gentle sound of purring, the stray cat resting at her feet, his golden eyes calm yet watchful. The kittens nestled close together, their tiny bodies rising with steady breaths. She whispered, "You're home now," her voice steady, filled with peace. For the first time, the room no longer carried echoes of fear, but the serenity of safety. Emily felt her chest lighten, realizing this fragile family had given her something priceless: purpose. The kittens stirred, playful mews filling the air as they tumbled across the rug. The older cat stretched, wincing slightly at its scars, but remained proud, watching over them. Emily laughed softly, the sound carrying relief and joy she had not felt in years. She whispered, "You're teaching me to live again." The scars in the cat's body mirrored her hidden wounds, yet together, they found healing. Light filtered through the window, casting their fragile bond in a glow that felt eternal. Emily sat by the window, her gaze distant yet softened by gratitude. The cat padded toward her, resting its head on her lap, eyes closing in trust. The kittens climbed onto the cushion, curling beside her arm. She whispered, "You saved me too," tears glistening but gentle. The storm of their past no longer held power here. Together they had woven a sanctuary out of brokenness. Beyond the glass, the city rushed endlessly, but inside the room, time slowed into stillness, love becoming the only rhythm. As the day faded, the apartment bathed in sunset hues. Emily lay on the rug, the kittens nestled against her side, purring softly. The cat sat upright near her head, eyes fixed on the window, as if guarding both her and the fragile family. The golden glow turned scars into symbols of survival, not shame. Emily whispered, "We made it through." Silence followed, but it was the silence of peace, not despair. The room carried the weight of triumph, of lives rebuilt, of love found in the most unexpected place. Night arrived, quiet and calm. Emily dimmed the lights, the cats curled together in a small bed by the fireplace. The older cat lifted his head, locking eyes with her across the room. She smiled through tears, whispering, "We're safe now." That silent exchange carried every unspoken promise: healing, loyalty, and love. The crackle of the fire filled the space, wrapping them in comfort. Emily closed her eyes, knowing tomorrow would bring challenges, but also hope. The story of survival had become one of belonging, etched forever in their hearts.